What do you think is the number one holdback of dads jumping in and being intentional?
Maybe they feel like they're unqualified. I just need to bring home the bacon, and we're missing the opportunity to preside. And to preside over our family means you have to be there. We equate our success and our ability to lead our families to our bank account for some reason versus to the relationships we have in the house. It's not about the number of zeros in that account, and all that stuff's important. I'm not saying we shouldn't be good stewards, but I am saying, man, you can't replace that time that your kids, they just need your presence.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the number one strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. My name is Jared. I'm one of the hosts here. As always, we release a new episode every single Wednesday, so please be sure to come back and check us out. Really excited to have a great guest with us today. It is important in our society and in our culture, and just really as being human beings, for us to operate the way that God has designed us to operate. We truly believe that at Strong by Design. And we have Chris Grainger with us today. And Chris is going to share with us a little bit about his story. He's also going to talk about the lion within us, and talking about what does it look like for us to be intentional, to take back the responsibility of really raising up and training up and discipling our kids, and not being dependent on outside sources to do that, whether that be the church, or maybe, I don't know, we can probably talk a little bit about public education, all of these different things that are a part of this, and recognizing that God has actually designed it so that you as the parent are to be the sole person who is investing in that child, and it shouldn't be outsourced. And so we're going to get into all of that today. But first of all, just want to welcome you to the show. Chris, I'm so grateful for you to be here. I'm excited to hear about all the things that God is doing with you in your life and through the lion within us. And so maybe I'll just turn it over to you, man. Maybe give us a little bit of history about who you are, where you came from, and why you're doing what you're doing.
Amen, Jared. Well, man, it's an honor to be here. So thank you just for this opportunity. So yeah, my name is Chris. I live in North Carolina. I was born and raised in Virginia. Moved to North Carolina about 12, 13 years ago now. But so yeah, I've been in leadership roles my whole life, and I've been through a lot of different things with my career, and actually started the Lion Within Us because when I first gave my life to Christ as a Christian when I was 16, I didn't have anyone discipling me, and I made lots of mistakes. I mean, lots of mistakes. So I did it just over and over and over, and I never had people to show me, how you read the Bible, how do you apply it, what does this mean, how should you date, how should you court, how should you be engaged, what does it look like to be married? I didn't know any of that stuff, man. I was just winging it, and then I went to college and I set it all to the side, and I just had a good time, and then I graduated college with an engineering degree and got a job making pretty good money. And next thing I know, I didn't need anything. I was just just living life without a need of anything, much like most of this country is. And then when I was about 29, my wife at the time decided she wanted to leave. And we had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. She left all of us. And so I got 2 little girls looking at me, trying to figure out, all right, Dad, what we're going to do now? And I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to lean back into my faith a little bit harder. And the church was there, it rallied around me. And I just started being more intentional about that. And that's just led to a series of events where, I met my current wife, and we're able to have 2 more children, or if we've lost children. It's been a journey, but each step of the way, it's just been learning to lean on the whole discipleship mentality of growing in Christ. I've been a 2-term deacon now, and served my 2nd term as a deacon, and all that stuff is fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, man, it's a daily getting up and choosing to surrender to follow Him, and but having some guys alongside me to do that with. And that's when about 2.5 years ago, the guy just laid it on my heart of, okay, there's lots of guys like you who need some discipleship, who churches are just, let's just face it, men's ministry at church is pretty, it's either really good or a dumpster fire. And most of the time it's a dumpster fire. And they think having a biscuit on a Saturday morning once a month is like men's ministry. And it's like, no, bro, like that's not how guys connect. So I started a podcast and went really well. It really took off. And then we decided to start a community, an online community for guys to get together and actually talk and be real and be vulnerable. That took off, and now we're doing leadership development training, and then we've started incorporating live events. We just had our first one last weekend, actually. Had a huge group of guys come together and just intentional about fellowship and shooting guns and camping and all sorts of stuff that guys like to do, right? So it's just it's been cool. We got mission trips lined up for this year. We have more in-person get-togethers, but we have stuff every day at the Line Within Us, and that's where guys just leaning in and they're just trying to disciple each other. So that's really, in a quick nutshell, where we're at and how we're trying to help people.
That's amazing. I remember when I went to Bible college and I was learning things and thinking to myself, why did I have to go to Bible college to learn this? Like, this is stuff that everybody should know. This is stuff that should be taught somehow in the church. And I don't know how. I mean, it's difficult. It's like you have your main service, which is typically you want it to be friendly to people that don't necessarily for visitors, people that may be new, and that makes sense to me. And then you have small group or life groups where you're trying to go a little bit deeper, maybe into a study, or you're trying to get a little bit more vulnerable with things. But for some reason, there's a lot of this core discipleship stuff that somehow gets lost in the middle. And so I'm grateful for what you're doing for sure. And it's a big piece to something that my wife and I feel called to, which is helping parents feel equipped to do that in their own home with their own children, which I'm sure is a part of the Line Within Us, right? Is the dad's role, the man's role in the home. And so maybe I'll ask that to you. What, biblically speaking, what does that look like? What is a father's role or a husband's role or the man's role look like within the context of the home?
100%. I mean, it's a spiritual leader. I mean, and Scripture speaks to that. And for me, with a lot of the guys, it's getting them to come to the realization that no matter how great your pastor is, and your pastor, and there's some wonderful pastors out there. Joby Martin's my favorite. He's out of Florida. And then you have, Tony Evans. There's just, you keep naming all these big time pastors down to the local pastors, right? They're all called by God to do what they're supposed to do, and they're leading the flock for sure at church. But it's not their job to raise your kids. It's our job. And it's our job to be a spiritual leader for our children and to be discipling them. And because if we're thinking, I tell them all the time, I was like, look, guys, you wouldn't go, and eat one meal on Sunday and then expect to be, good until you go to church next Sunday, right? You wouldn't eat one meal a week. By Tuesday or Wednesday, you'd be starving. But yet we treat spirituality that way, where we expect this one person on one day of the week for 30 minutes or an hour to fully fill the spiritual needs of our family. And maybe we go back on a Wednesday. And most families now, I think the average church family goes, twice a month or something like that? You wouldn't eat just twice a month and be full. So it's like, no, you are the ones that have to be filling and be feeding your family spiritually.
Yeah. I think there's the 80-20 rule too. Like 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work when it comes to like volunteers and things along those lines. But even then, I think the statistic is you'll get like two appearances at a church on a typical person, right? So Sunday's one, so typically you only see them maybe one other time during the week. And like for us, our oldest is in youth group now. So my wife and I flip-flop volunteering at youth group on Wednesday, and so we're there on Sundays, we're there on Wednesdays. We're there a lot more as well. My wife is currently on staff with the children's program. So, I mean, we're there a lot more than that but we're not your typical churchgoers either. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where a couple of points that I want to make. The first one is that, just like you said, it's not the church's job to disciple your kids. And that's something that, as a youth pastor, was a frustration of mine, where parents would just come and bring their kids, and it's like, I don't know how to do it at home, so you guys do it for me. And with this, crossing their fingers and hoping that the church will help their kid fall in love with Jesus. It doesn't work like that. If Jesus isn't normal at home, he's not going to be normal outside of the home.
Right.
So I know that you said that the father is supposed to be the spiritual leader.
Yeah.
I think that can be an ambiguous term that people might not fully understand or grasp. What does that mean to be the spiritual leader in the home? What does that look like?
Yeah, for me, that's just about being obedient to what God's calling you to do. And I think lots of guys, man, this is where I was too, Jared, man. I felt like I can't be a spiritual leader because I'm not a pastor. I mean, you are, right?
Yeah.
You had that experience. I've never been to seminary. What do I can't, I mean, I can't.
You're hitting on my buttons today, buddy.
Well, I mean, this is it, right?
That's good.
I mean, this is where I was. Like, I still haven't been to seminary.
And it's not just you; it's all over the board, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, all right, so I talked myself out of it for years. Of like, okay, I can't be a spiritual leader. I don't have pastor from my name. I didn't go to Southeastern Biblical Theology, whatever seminary, wherever it is in your hometown. And, I know the Bible stories, but I don't know them enough to teach them or anything like that. And so I talked myself out of it until I realized, wait a minute, doggone it. Look at all the disciples. I mean, that was a band of misfit toys right there.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those guys, went to had the deep theological, not until you got to Apostle Paul. I mean, he was rocking it, but the other guys were just like me. They were willing to just learn and obey. And when I talked to Joby, I've interviewed him a few times, he was just like, bro, all you have to do to be a spiritual leader is just do whatever he tells you to do. And for me, that's different than for you and for every listener out there. And that the only way we know that is just listen, get into his word and be willing to be uncomfortable. And I think once I started embracing that, man, it took a lot of pressure off. And now I start finding myself to that, sanctification, just growing every day a little bit better and more comfortable with it as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, for me, a struggle is consistency. So, I mean, that's been my pattern my entire life is I'm very gung-ho as I get something going, but give it a couple of months and it starts to taper off, right? And so I think that there's there's two things that you said. Number one is just learning to hear and be obedient. Like that's such an important piece. I also think that there's value in being intentional with, you're talking about eating meals, right? Is being intentional in how are we engaging in a relationship with Jesus on the regular, and building that into our natural rhythms. This last couple of weeks, the opportunity, I've been going to a Friday morning Bible study. I'm not a morning person. I need to preface it with that. So I've been going to a Friday morning Bible study with some guys at the church, and we meet at 6:30 in the morning. And then I got invited to go to a jiu-jitsu class with some other guys from church, and it starts at 5:30 in the morning. Now, that means I'm getting out the door like 5, which it's rough. It's rough for me. It happened for a solid week.
Right.
But at the end of the week, I was kind of just processing through. I was exhausted, trying to figure out what was going on, and the Spirit spoke to me and said, "See, you can get up. I knew you could do it."
Right.
And it was that soft, gentle conviction of the Holy Spirit that only He can do, of like, hey, would you mind, getting up just a little early? You don't need to go to jiu-jitsu and be there at 5:30 in the morning, but could you get up at 6:30 and just spend a little bit of time with me, before you start your day? And before I'd be like, oh no, I don't need to get up early. I can do that at night, or I can do that whenever I want. But, it was just this gentle drawing of the Spirit to say, hey, get up and spend time with me. Yeah, and you just proved to yourself, that it's possible. So figuring out how to have rhythms that are consistent, I think, is super important and super valuable. And like I said, I'm the worst at it, and my wife will tell you all day long, when I fall short in those things. So, what are some other things, at least for you personally, or things that you're teaching guys? Are there other things that you're trying to encourage them to build into their rhythms?
Yeah, for sure. One thing I really teach, and I'm doing this myself and trying to really just walk this stuff out, is take a look at our calendar and just, when I look at it through a different lens. Because we typically look at it through task, right? We have all these tasks on our calendars. We got these meetings, wherever it may be. And then you have, if you have kids, like I have kids in the youth too, all the way down to the nursery, bro. So I got them all covered. And so you got, softball, baseball, all the sports, the extracurricular stuff, right? So you got all these tasks that we're managing. And then I asked the guys, I'm like, all right, now, based off your calendar, what's reflective of your priorities? Like if we want to see, if we're saying that, all right, we want to grow spiritually, we want to lead our family spiritually, how is that reflective in the tasks that we have on our calendar? It is because quite often church is the first thing that goes away, or family devotion goes away, or family mealtime goes away, because we let the busyness of life just take over. And it's like, no, man, let's view our calendar through the lens of priorities first, and put the big rocks in first. And then the rest of the tasks, we got to figure that stuff out, because that's just managing life. None of that stuff's going to go away. But we can be very intentional about making sure the priorities of what we say is a priority is real. I mean, for us, practically, that looks like my kids I don't let them play travel sports. And some people look at me like, you're a moron. Like, why would you not let your kids play travel sports? Like, they're good enough. They can play travel sports. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But travel sports take away from our Wednesday night worship, which I lead to teaching it at our church on Wednesday night. And then lots of them play on Sundays. And so at that point, and then you start hearing all these justifications and rationalizations of why you should be able to do this, because maybe they're a travel team and we can be the gospel on the field. And I'm like, I get all that. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to make rationalize, because usually when we rationalize, that's what we do, right? And it's just like, no, let's make sure we're putting our priorities first. And my bigger priority versus the 4 years of where the kids are going to spend school at once they graduate, I'm more concerned about where they're going to spend eternity than I am that 4 years of college, man. Yeah. It's like, it's just a whole new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. And it's definitely an abnormal approach in our culture. We get the same thing. I mean, our kids aren't even in sports right now. And my wife and I have all kinds of conversations about, if our kids grow up and they are never, on a sports team, what's more important, right? Are that they're connected on a sports team, or that they know and love Jesus, And so, obviously, in our conversation, we want them to know and love Jesus more than anything. And our kids, they mimic us whether we want them to or not. And
right.
They don't just mimic what we say, but they mimic what we do.
Right.
And so that whole idea of where you're putting your priorities is where essentially they're going to ultimately put their priorities. And so what are we communicating to our kids when we say, God's important, but this tournament is more important, And I love that you said too, that we can justify it away, and through all kinds of different ways, we can always find loopholes, right?
100%.
But you're still communicating that same message.
You are. And they're watching, man. I mean, the old saying, there's more caught than taught, right? I mean, that you can sit there and preach to them. But, I always relate it to like eating. Like, we want to eat healthy, and they see dad over there eating a Hershey bar every night. What does that tell them? Like, it's okay to eat, to eat junk food. So it's just like, no, man, this is the hard part of being a father and being a leader. It's like, you actually have to do the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it tough.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the number one fear, the number one holdback of dads jumping in and being intentional?
Number one fear, probably insecurity. Like, they feel like they can't do it because maybe they feel like they're unqualified, and they just have this fear of, what, I just want to be as a dad. I just need to bring home the bacon, bring home, and provide. And we're missing the opportunity to preside, and to preside over our family means you have to be there. I mean, I totally get, we feel like we want to, the dads, I think we equate our success and our ability to lead our families to our bank account for some reason versus to the relationships we have in the house. And man, it's at the end of the day, it's not about the number of zeros in that account, and all that stuff's important. I'm not saying we shouldn't be good stewards, but I am saying, man, you can't replace that time that your kids, they just need your presence, just your presence. And I think we missed that.
Yeah, we say this all the time as well. It's not just being present, but it's being present.
Yeah, be where your feet are, right? I mean, you have to actually be there.
Yeah. So certainly in the modern world that we live in, our phones are a complete distraction, right? So let's say a dad comes to you and says, "Man, I want to do this right." Do you ever give any kind of advice on how to handle media or our phones, or even movies or TV, any of that stuff? Do you give any kind of direction when dads come to you with those questions?
What I do is I tell them how we do it, and most of the time they don't like it, but I just give it to them. Okay, here's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about the kids first, because then I talk about me second. Then I'm a big hypocrite, so this is the way I want to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, but with the kids, we don't allow smartphones. Our kids, I have an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and then, a 2 and a 1-year-old. So, but the 8th and 6th graders, they are literally the only kids in their class who don't have smartphones. And, and I just try to, but I have to tell them over. And luckily my 6th grader, she gets it. But my 8th graders, man, this is a battle. But I tell her, I said, this is a battle, honey, that I'm willing to die on because I love you. And just like I wouldn't hand you a loaded 9mm because you haven't had that training, I just can't give you that loaded, open iPhone. And I know there's all sorts of stuff out there for different ways to introduce it to them. But for me and our family, we just don't want to open that door, because she has an addictive personality like me. And I tell her, I say, you have this, because we let her play on her tablet some in the living room, and we see it. So, that's been for me. It's just like, we just don't allow it. And I don't know the timeline of when we will. And then for me as a man, I had to take some stuff off my phone, like Instagram. I had it on there for the Line with Dennis. I had to take it off because I just found it sucking me away. I mean, it was just, you think you're going to check out something for the business or for work, and next thing you know, it's just spiraling. So, we talk a lot about, when the sun's down, screens out, stuff like that, prayer before smartphone in the morning. So I have lots of tips around that stuff, but it's just probably some of the hardest thing. I just feel like the addictions we have to these smartphones is worse than any tobacco, drug. Sometimes, I mean, I know people who just absolutely, and I'm probably one of them. If I were to left my phone somewhere for, a day or two, I don't know how to do. We just had a men's retreat, and one of the guys actually left his phone at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, brother, and he was calm. I'm like, I couldn't. You're impressing me, because right now, if I did the same thing, I would be freaking out. And it's just it's crazy.
It's weird how we've merged into this culture of needing to be connected all the time. If you look back, we've been watching Full House. You remember Full House? And they were able to make phone calls and stuff like that from the landline, right? But it's people were gone and people weren't freaking out. Nobody worried about it. They're like, all right, well, they'll call me when they can, or they'll be here when they get here, or you're making plans like, hey, I'm going out, I'll be back at 10 o'clock,
right?
And you're like, okay, fine. But now if I'm gone, Not that my wife is like checking in on me or anything. Like
Yeah.
it's not like she's nervous about it. It's just like she wants to know that I'm safe, And
Yep.
so it's just an interesting change of perspective of how this need that we have to know. I need to know where everyone, and it's this false sense of control almost of knowing that everyone's safe and secure, and they're
Yeah.
actually. I have no power whether or not they're safe or secure. Just the power of knowing now. It's messed up our whole psyche. I think a little bit.
Yeah.
We need to re-implement this back in our kids don't have smartphones either. Our kids don't have anything. We actually have a T-Mobile smartwatch where all it can do is call the people that we say that it can call, even texting is like there's like text messages that you can send. Anyway, it's definitely nothing that's fun for them to be on by any means. It's solely for connecting, and what we used to have at our old place was a basket. It was like our phone basket. So when we would come in the house, we would put the phone in the basket and forget about it, which as a pastor for me was difficult because I always, there's a lot of on-call stuff. And even then, it was through actually some counseling that I went through where, our counselor told me like, you don't need to you need to set healthy boundaries between being with your family and being at work, and recognizing that they don't need access to you 100% of the time. Like that's not fair to your family, and your priority is your family. And so lots of adjustments and having to work through feelings when it came to that kind of stuff. But definitely you're the weirdo when you don't have the smartphone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I'm okay with my kids being weirdos. Like,
right?
Yeah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To a degree, I'm okay with them being a weirdo anyway.
Well, the same thing with like our marriage. Like, I mean, I want my marriage to be a little weird because the marriages that aren't, they're broken, divorced.
Yeah.
I'd rather be weird and happy together and connected than do marriage the way that the world does in so many ways. I mean, I get it. I try to tell the kids all the time, like, look, it's the old chocolate chip cookie. We are the chocolate chips. We're supposed to mix into this world. We're not supposed to blend in. You don't want to be just part of cookie dough because, I mean, the best part of the chocolate chip cookie is the chocolate chips. Let's just be real. So it's like, and they get it. But again, that peer pressure when you're a 13 young teenage girl, man, it's real.
Yeah. Our oldest is 12, and we had to establish a rule that said you're not allowed to look at other people's phones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Which is also weird. I had one of his friends came up to me and they're like, is he really not allowed to look at my phone? And I said, no, he's not. And he's like, I just wanted to show him this funny video or whatever it was. I'm like, nope, he's not allowed to look at your phone.
Yep.
So don't ask him to do it again, and it's a hard no. And I guess moving forward from that a little bit is how do we then begin to teach and develop our kids how to handle technology in a safe and healthy way so that when they do turn 18 or when they do leave the house, they're now prepared and equipped for the internet, for devices. Have you thought through that at all?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One is just, again, kind of going back to caught versus taught. They need to see our habits and how are we able to healthily manage that directly? But the big one, I have 3 girls and my youngest is a boy. And so much of what we're trying to protect and guard them from, is the sexual immorality that's out there. So what I really am intentional about with my daughters in particular, and my son when he gets to be of age, what I'm going to be really intentional about is speaking life into them around they're fearfully and wonderfully made, making sure they understand what modesty is. Just openly talk to them about sex and sexuality and sex before, the way God designed sex within the confines of marriage and why that's beautiful and how we ruin it and just completely corrupt what is good when we take it outside of that. And I've been able to actually interview and talk to, I had a former pornography star who came on our show. He is a male performer, and he gave his life to Christ, and he's really trying to help just spread the darkness. And I just talked to him openly about pornography, and his conversations are weird. They're uncomfortable, you know. And you think that, like, they think it's weird. And me as the dad, you know, just your hands get kind of clammy up, and it's like, you know, you got to clear your throat a lot, you know. But at the same time, like, I'm going to speak truth to them because I know the truth I'm speaking to them is that it's the truth versus I'm going to let some little punk who found this website and expect them to be able to discern what is good. Like, no. So I'm trying to be proactive there, but it's a consistent thing of, it's small stuff, man. Like going to the beach or to the pool. We're a pretty conservative, modest family. So we don't do bikinis. We don't do the 2 pieces. And that's very weird for a lot of people. But for our daughters, hey, let's just wear 1 piece. Let's recognize that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You know, God, there's not a flaw in you. And you could have just as much fun at the pool with the 1 piece modest bathing suit versus the 2 pieces. And the weird part is, like, we go to these church events, and even at church events, you have the bikinis running around and stuff from church people. And it's like, all right, so we just, there's different, and I'm not saying I'm right or they're wrong. I'm just saying for us, that's what's important. Those are the types of things I'm trying to speak into them to prepare them for when they get that website and they see it, they recognize this is not holy. This is not what I should be looking at.
Yeah. I think that the beach or the pool is a great example of certainly how we can be dressing ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We actually just had this conversation with our 12-year-old too, you know.
Really?
Because it makes him uncomfortable. Like when he sees, you know, he sees the thong or whatever like that, and he's like, I don't want to look at people's butts, you know?
Right.
And so do you give advice, what, you know, for men or for dads trying to teach this stuff to their sons or even their daughters? I mean, pornography is becoming even more and more prevalent with females as well. Right. And how do we teach them? I mean, I have my own ideas. I'm just curious your thoughts on how we teach them to protect their eyes and protect their minds and their souls when we're out, because we can't control the world around us.
Right. I think some of it you have to actually don't suppress it or hide it. So if you see it, you know, with my daughters, for instance, my 13 and 12-year-old, and I'll just talk to them about, hey guys, you know, I know that was kind of weird, or, you know, what that lady has on over there, or what that guy's wearing over there, because it can go both ways at the beach, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, look, we need to recognize that's not the way. Obviously, no one has shown them that they're fearfully and wonderfully made, and maybe they don't understand the value of their body. But I think it's just embracing those conversations, man, and not just thinking that they're not seeing it or hoping they don't see it. Just be like, hey, did you see that? Mm-hmm. You know, and just use that as an opportunity to teach and to learn but like you said too, making sure we're not out there, you know, doing all this stuff with our own bodies as well, that we want to model that type of behavior in ourselves.
My wife and I had some friend/mentors early on in our marriage, and they always talked about they had I'll tell this story that my wife would be like, don't look at that over there, and I would be like, look at what over where, and like you just naturally look because they're pointing in a direction, and you're not even, and they're like, I told you not to, and so lots of fights happened because of the don't look over there statement, right? And what they told us is they said, don't say don't look over there. Instead, say, have like a word that you use so that the other person knows, like, avert your eyes, you know. And so we always use the word bounce, you know. Okay. And so they always said, you know, bounce, baby, bounce, you know. And so that meant, like, look away. There's something that isn't good for your eyes to see, you know. And so we talk about that with our kids too, you know. Hey, bounce your eyes, you know. And that's kind of like our key word is bounce, you know, and that everyone knows, okay, you know, look down or look, you know that there's something around that isn't going to be good for me to see. Sure. And then we also, like, with all of this stuff, I want my kids to know that they can talk to me, and that they can come to me, and it's safe, and they don't have to feel afraid or ashamed of whatever it is that they're thinking or feeling. And so that's a big deal for us and our family as well, and something that we try to teach others is keeping that conversation open. So I had the sex talk with Ezra at 10, because I think kids are being introduced to pornography. I think the average age is 7. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's super early. Yeah.
And so it's like I want him to know that when things arise, I want him to come and ask me questions and not go and talk to friends or ask Alexa. I think one time he asked Alexa a question, and I'm like, no, don't talk to Alexa. Alexa is not going to give you a good answer.
That's right. That's right.
Please come talk to me. I know for me, growing up, it was curiosity of the unknown that that got me into trouble. And so I was searching stuff up or trying to find answers in the wrong places. And so opening up those pathways early for our kids to know, hey, questions are good. Ask whatever question you want. Just come and talk to me about it.
That's right. I mean, when I grew up, my parents expected the school to do it.
Right.
I mean, we had sex ed, teachers, they'd come in with all these weird charts and maybe a video or two that were just like all the kids would cackle and laugh the whole time. But that was my experience, So when it came to be of age and adolescence, I had lots of curiosity, right? And then at some point, that's just what I tell guys too. Like if you're thinking, all right, well, I know about sex and I got all this stuff and I'm going to date this girl and I'm going to do it the right way and I'm going to get married and I'm like, this is great. But at some point, usually your biology is going to outrun your theology. And next thing you know, this is where we get in trouble. So we have to have guys that are speaking truth to us as well, that are pulling us back in and that are willing to just tell us the hard truths. I mean, I think, this is just a big gap, not just with churches, with guys in general. We need to have some of those brothers that are willing to speak those truths to us, particularly around parenting and all our own journeys as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, setting up those healthy boundaries. It's probably not a good idea to do this or that, whatever it might be. And I mean, it was hard I'm sure it was hard for you. It was hard for me to set up my own boundaries for myself.
100%.
And so, anything that we can do to teach our kids these things, and then recognizing that if they fall short, I still want them to be able to come talk to me about it and not feel like I'm going to berate them, or tell them how terrible they are, or what were you thinking, or all of the things that I think we would normally do. And I mean, that pulls back into, again, that, man, it is your call as a Christian, it is your calling as a parent to invest and teach your own child. It's not the school's job. It's not the church's job. It's your job. And that's, we can't keep writing that off, right? We can't keep saying, we can't keep shooting out all of the excuses. And we need to recognize that if I'm a parent, I am called. It's not, am I called to do this? You are called. I'm telling you, you are called to do this. It is your job and your responsibility. And especially as dads and as men, we have to step up and step seriously into that role and take the responsibility serious.
100%. I tell the guys, man, look, you're handpicked. Think about that. Handpicked by God to lead your family. Mm-hmm. Like he could have chose anybody, but he chose you. Mm-hmm. And yet we get that put upon us and we want to outsource it. It's like, no, you can't outsource this, man. This is not a subcontractor here.
Yeah.
Like, the English teacher or the pastor or the youth pastor. No, you don't outsource that stuff. Or the coach at the ball field. No, you have to lean in. And this is something, man, I think if more guys took this seriously and recognized the power that we have as men to be able to do this, man, what a change we can make.
Yeah. Yeah, the church should be supplemental to what's
100%.
Already happening at home and not the other way around. And we have it backwards.
Yep, 100%. That's why I tell guys about the lion. I mean, it's a supplement. We're a supplement for churches. We don't want to replace that, but Guys need supplements. I mean, it's good. It's okay to have that supplemental stuff, but you are the core yourself. You are the leader.
Yeah. And I'm convinced that to see our country come to a place where it loves God again, that happens at home, in the homes. It starts in the home. It's not going to start at some big event somewhere. I mean, those are good. I love big events. I love when thousands of Christians are together, worshiping God together. Like, it's a beautiful thing, but it's not sustainable long term.
Right.
And the only way for revival to be sustainable is for this transformation to happen in the home, and for parents, and specifically fathers, to start taking this job seriously and investing in it, and taking those steps to say, hey, I'm going to be the spiritual leader in my home, and I'm going to take that role seriously.
That's right. I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole Matthew 28, right, where it tells us about go therefore and make disciples. And we always think about that as, at least I always thought about that as, I need to go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at, the unpack the meaning of the go, what Jesus was saying there was, as you are going.
Yeah.
This is daily, man. This is at wherever you live. This, as you are going, you're supposed to make disciples, and no better place to start than the little humans that are living in your home, and we have to be discipling them. And man, it's so important. And at the same time, we have to be,
like, we don't even have to go looking. Like,
right.
Sometimes when I think about making disciples, I think, well, man, I live really far away from this person, or it's hard to live life with that person, or, all of these different, and it's like, these are you don't even have to choose to live life with them. You are living life with them.
Right.
And spiritual formation is happening. Right, it's always happening, whether you want it to or not. We're learning the things to worship. We're learning rhythms in our lives. Well, the formation is happening, and
right.
We can either be proactive about it, or we're going to end up being reactive about it and be very disappointed with the results.
100%. Yeah, I mean, take advantage of the people sitting around that table, every day. And just lean into it. The practical, and I think practical discipleship. That's why when I teach, I'm all about simplify and apply. You don't feel like you have to be some deep level theologian and try to make these huge Old Testament, New Testament prophecy connect. No, just talk.
Well,
to
the Greek word says.
Yeah, right. I'm like, no, bro. Like she says, okay. What does this scripture say? How can we apply it, guys? And what does that look like? And I think if we just took just that approach, man, it takes pressure off of us, and the Holy Spirit's going to do the work. We just have to be willing to actually go in and have to be vulnerable and have those conversations.
Yeah. That's been really fun for our family as well, is to actually read the Bible together, and hear from the kids what they're hearing. What are you hearing in this?
Yeah,
and it's so fun, and we've actually learned from them. As we've gone through that process with them, and
there you go.
It's and they end up getting excited about it, And so it's you don't. I love that you say that we don't have to be the expert, because you don't. It's not a matter of preparing. It's just a matter of doing it, making it happen.
That's right.
And figuring out how to make it consistent in your rhythm.
Right.
And like I said, I just want to reiterate, I'm not perfect at this, and I am taking strides. Paul says, die to yourself daily, because he recognizes that we grow apathetic, and I don't want to be apathetic. I want to be intentional. And so I just, anyone that's listening to this conversation, please recognize that it is a push that we have to be daily intentional about, and that I don't think you're coming from a place either, Chris, of saying, hey, I've solved it, I have all of the problems figured out, and so do as I do,
Right. I could say that, but then I'm the biggest hypocrite on the planet at that point, right? So I mean, it's a daily struggle. I mean, and I teach this stuff, and then I teach the Bible at our church on Wednesday. I teach on Sunday. I'm always in the Bible, and I still struggle with my own. I got 4 kids here, a couple in heaven, but I have 4 here I'm supposed to disciple. And it's like, and I still struggle with discipling them, so it's just, but I'm willing to be obedient and just keep trying every day. And some days are better than others, and I tell you what, here's something for you guys that listen or want to maybe start this. Don't expect when you sit down and start this that it's going to go great. It's usually a dumpster fire as we get this going. Because first of all, the evil one does not want you to do this.
Yeah,
like the last 100%. Thing he wants is for you to be a spiritual leader or to be leading discipleship or doing like the family devotions. Some of the best fights we've ever had, like people that were in the middle of family devotion. I mean, it's just like, really, wow. So, I mean, just don't think it's going to all be like cupcakes and rainbows and Skittles breath. No, it's not, man. It's going to be a battle, but it's a battle worth fighting. And just throw it up. And sometimes I've had to literally stop and just like, all right, we're not doing devotion right now. Let's take a break, time out, and let's go. And at the same time, like, I've been so mad before. I remember that my daughters would tell you this one. They got me, it was just a bad day all around. So I just told the whole family, go get your Bibles. It's like in a real not loving voice. I say, open to John. And so read chapter 1, then my next daughter, read chapter 2, and my wife, I was like, you read chapter 3. And then at some point they were like, when do we stop? And I was like, I don't know, whenever I feel better. So I think we got to like John 6, but I mean, those attacks are going to come, just lean into it.
Yeah. And I think having the expectation and knowing it's going to happen, and recognizing that it's always going to be easier to not.
Yeah, 100%.
Always going to be easier to not.
Yeah.
And easy doesn't mean right, Yeah. And it happens with us too. I mean, happened the other night. We were having a rough night, and I'm like, hey, let's pray together. And so I just start praying out loud, and my wife got upset with me because one daughter was still upstairs, and she hadn't sat down yet. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just felt like we needed to pray. And she's like, don't you want everybody to pray with us? And I'm like, yes, I do. I'm sorry, I did not think this one through,
Oh, yeah.
And so does that mean that we give up and we don't pray? We took a time out. She went outside and cooled off a little bit. We had a conversation. We came back in, and then she was actually the one that said, hey, I still, let's pray. We need to pray together, So we did. We all sat down as a family and we prayed together. And I got to tell you, prayer, reading scripture is so important. Prayer is also so important. And praying together, praying as a husband and wife, and praying on your own. Like all of these are so vital to the lifeblood of being able to be the spiritual leader, right? And we recognize that prayer is not us trying to convince God of something, but if we can approach it as we're allowing God to convince us of something, and seeing it as, I'm trying to understand, God, what are you doing so that I can follow you, as opposed to, hey, I got this brilliant idea, God, do you think you could bless it?
Right.
It's just two different ways to approach who God is and the reality of what's going on. And man, I just encourage people to be praying. Paul says always be praying. Pray without ceasing. And just make it a part of what you do, is having that constant communion and relationship with Jesus in everything that you do. My wife and I love, after the kids are asleep, to just go and pray over them at night. It's like one of the most peaceful and gratifying times of prayer is just being intentional to go do that with them overnight. And it's like you're taking them and just placing them at the altar of Jesus and saying, God, you take them, because I know that I'm going to screw them up,
100%. Yeah.
And so it's just, I guess it's something that I'm always trying to encourage people to do, and recognize that, again, it's not easy. It's going to be that you're going to have that battle when it comes to that prayer life, even in your own self and in your flesh. Your flesh is going to resist it, and you got to overcome that.
You do. I mean, I think on so far as praying with your spouse, one thing I teach, and it may be new, it may be not, but just try to use these doggone smartphones to our advantage. Is I tell guys all the time, so okay, your anniversary. So let's say you got married in September. Like for us, we got married on September 23rd. So I have a alarm in my phone for 9:23, and you could do AM or PM, but just put your anniversary date as an alarm. Now, if you got married in January, you may want to make it in the afternoon so you're not waking up at 1 in the morning, you know. But and when it goes off, if you're with your spouse, pray with her. If you're not, just pray for her, and just make that a daily habit, and it's trying to build in these little rituals to put intentionality around prayer for, our partner in life. So, I mean, it's just little stuff like that.
Yeah, love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
Anything that we can do that's practical,
Right.
That's what makes it work. And if I know a lot of people are like me as well, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't happen. I literally in my calendar up here, our twins, we have twins that are they just turned 9, and then our
Nice.
daughter who's 10 is about to turn 11 in May, and we're having like a joint birthday party for them, and my wife wanted me to make invitations for their kids, just digital ones that we could send out. And she had to put in the calendar, it says something along the lines of, Jared, do not forget to make these invitations or something. And it's like, has a bunch of exclamation points on it. And it was because she had verbally asked me over and over and over again, but I kept forgetting. And it wasn't until it was actually in the calendar that I went, oh yeah, and then I was able to sit down and make that happen. So it's just the way my brain works. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, but doing what you need to do to be intentional, to be practical, to make these things happen.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about the priorities in your calendar. So if discipleship and Bible study and praying, there's nothing that says you can't put a little 15-minute time block on your calendar for prayer.
Right.
Or discipleship time. Like, this is the night we're going to do Bible study as a family. Put that on the calendar and then hold yourself to it. Because, I mean, I need those reminders too.
Yep. And do it in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
Because if it's not sustainable, you're going to lose it.
That's right. I mean, and some of that stuff we've had to learn. It has to change because, as we get into seasons of like softball, sometimes the nights for the games could be the night that we traditionally would do it. So it's okay to have some flexibility, but adjust it. Don't drop it.
Exactly.
Just make those adjustments.
Exactly. Yep. Well, Chris, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And man, I know that there's just so much value in what we were talking about. If people want to connect with you or they want to connect with the Lion Within Us, where do you send them?
Yeah, we host everything on our site. thelionwithin.us is the website, so it's not .com, it's .us.
Clever.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, when we did that, just to we grabbed it up. I was like, all right, thelionwithin.us, let's do that. And then we have all sorts of free resources. I'm an author on the Bible app for YouVersion, so I have lots of devotions out there for families, for dads. Around that you could use, for discipleship, things like that with your kids, Bible studies. So 20 plus, maybe getting close to 30 now, devotionals out on YouVersion, and then lots of just free resources we have on our website. And then if you're a guy listening and you need some guys around you that's going to help encourage you, check out our community. And that's all that stuff's on thelionwithin.us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you again. Man, this stuff is so deeply needed, and so I'm just grateful for God raising up people everywhere. It's been fun. It's fun doing the podcast because I get to connect with so many different people and see, God dripping the same messages all over the place, and it's just a blessing to be part of God's kingdom and that community. And I'm grateful for you and what you guys are doing. So keep rolling. And again, Strong by Design. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Please check us out if you enjoyed, or I would say if you benefited from this conversation, maybe you know of someone else that would benefit from this conversation as well, please share the episode or invite them in to listen to it. Give us a review on Apple. That's always helpful as well to help us get this message out there. Stay strong. We appreciate you all, and we will hear back from you, or you hear back from us next week. Have a blessed week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.